The story begins with Lindsay's character getting splashed with drink. The girl who did this apologized, pretending that she didn't notice her. The others whisper that Lindsay now looks like a wet mouse, but Lindsay said her hair now has a fruity scent. She left while everyone was wondering why she was pretending to be nice. The invitation sent to Lindsay was from the Emperor, and she knows that they are not kind to her. But she can't blame them, knowing what the real Charlotte Lindsay did. Charlotte bullied and hit other girls. She is the eldest daughter of the powerful Marquis of Lindsay, and she is also the villain of the heroic novel In Search of a Husband. It was inside this fantasy novel that our main heroine found herself. Charlotte clung to the protagonist, Duke Hicklid. She even dared to make an attempt on the novel's main character, Ayla. Of course, this enraged Duke Hicklid. This pressure was intended to force Lindsay's family to disown Charlotte. Her father asked her what she was going to say in her defense. Charlotte fell to her knees and began to apologize for being wrong. And it was at this moment that our main character was transported. Not knowing what to do, she was told that she would be sent to an estate outside the city in 6 months. She suddenly noticed that the young girls were crowded around something. It turned out that Karel, a minor character in the novel, had arrived. Charlotte is not surprised that he is popular with women. Then another minor character, Reynard, showed up here. Charlotte didn't expect to see them here, but now is not the time for her to think about it. The heroine needs to get out of here as soon as possible. There is no one around, and she will have just enough time to slip away from the castle. But she came across people who said she never got tired of it. It turned out to be Cedric, the main male character, and Isla. And that's why Charlotte wanted to run away. She began to make excuses, saying that there had been a misunderstanding. The others thought she was trying to approach his lordship again. Charlotte apologizes to Cedric for bumping into him. But Cedric screams that he's not finished yet and won't let her go. He asks Charlotte what excuse she has prepared this time. But suddenly, at this moment, one knight asks him to get out of the way. It turned out to be Eugene Mont, a minor character. Cedric didn't think the knight was interested in royal banquets, but Eugene isn't going to tell him twice. Eventually, Cedric and Isla leave, giving up. When Eugene turned around, Charlotte's whereabouts had vanished without a trace. She managed to escape when Eugene showed up there just in time. It was no wonder that he was her favorite character in this novel. But it's unlikely that Charlotte will be able to face him again. The villain should never associate with those who love the Duchess. So Charlotte plans to keep her distance and play her part quietly. She still doesn't know how she got into this book, but for now she's happy with it. She's a little lonely, but there's nothing she can do about it. Suddenly, the Crown Prince sneaks into her room. He covers her mouth and asks the girl not to scream. The Crown Prince apologizes for the suddenness, saying that he came with a request. And his request is that she let him sleep in her bed. Charlotte was almost speechless when she heard the question. The Crown Prince suggests that she thinks he has gone mad, but he admits that every time he goes to bed, he hears a voice. It's a terribly realistic hallucination, whispering in his ear over and over again. The Crown Prince has heard this so many times that he can repeat it word for word. He heard that the main character belongs to the main character, so he will take the supporting character. And then they whispered his name to Reynard and called him to their bed. Words cannot describe how shocked Charlotte was by what she heard. The main character cannot inherit the title unless she marries, and that is why the girl is forced to find herself a husband. She ends up staying with her childhood friend, Cedric. However, readers were unhappy with this decision. Our main character didn't like this ending. The last comment was hers, that she would take a minor character into her bed. Charlotte remembers that those were definitely her comments. Reynard admits that, despite not recognizing this voice, he continues to think about Charlotte, and his instincts tell him to go to her and to her bed. The Crown Prince is already afraid that Charlotte has cursed him. She, of course, replied that it was impossible. Reynard had thought she wouldn't waste the curse on him. Charlotte is glad that he doesn't suspect her. Either way, it's giving Reynard insomnia. Charlotte thinks it's too much for a man and a woman to share a bed. But the Crown Prince thought it obvious that she would sleep elsewhere. Reynard began to change clothes, apologizing in advance. He is dead tired and could collapse at any moment. Wanting to leave as quickly as possible, Charlotte wishes him good night. It wasn't her wish to be kicked out of her own bed by a minor character. Reynard even brought his prepared pajamas with him. Charlotte asked him what was wrong, ready to fix everything. But Reynard thinks it really was wrong to kick her out, so he decides to just take a blanket and sleep on the couch. Still, thanks to the blanket, Charlotte, who was sleeping on the sofa, was not cold. But suddenly, the crown prince wakes her up, saying that he cannot sleep. He thought he would be able to fall asleep, but the drowsiness disappeared. Reynard says he wants to sleep on the couch and asks to give it to him. For some reason now, he wanted to lie on the sofa. Finally, lying in bed, Charlotte relaxes, but after a while, Reynard wakes her up again, wanting to sleep on the bed. Charlotte suggested that he needed to sleep with her. Reynard also thought that what he needed was not a bed, but a place next to it. So the man asks her to ask properly. He asks if she would agree to let him lie down next to her. Charlotte is embarrassed, but still agrees, since she has no choice. But Reynard has one thing that Charlotte must promise. First, he asks Charlotte to keep quiet about his insomnia. And this is true, because the crown prince has plenty of enemies in the empire. And secondly, the man asks her not to fall in love with him. Charlotte had forgotten that Reynard was a complete narcissist. Before naming the last point, he draws his sword. He asks not to touch this sword while they sleep. And only after that did they both go to bed, separated by weapons. Charlotte sincerely doesn't understand how one can fall asleep in such conditions. The next morning, Reynard feels like he's the one who sanctifies anyone. He noted that he no longer heard voices, which was good. Charlotte is free and can finally rest in peace. The crown prince asks her to think about what she would like in return. Charlotte just hopes her life stays as calm as it is. Soon she is out on the streets with her personal knight. Due to poor sleep, Charlotte missed lunch and is now hungry. But her good behavior played into her hands, and her father gave her some pocket money. Suddenly, this very money is stolen by a street thief. Charlotte asks George to catch the thief, but he said he couldn't. His duty is to protect her, and he cannot run away. For him, her safety is more important than money. But suddenly, the knight Eugene appears and catches the thief. While George was indignant about who it was, Charlotte wondered how he got here. The knight gives the girl her stolen bag of money. George finds the knight suspicious and asks her to move away. But Charlotte told him that he was the only suspicious one here. She asked why he refused to chase the thief. George replied that he was worried about her safety. But Charlotte is not satisfied with this kind of concern. They will find out everything when they ask if the thief had an accomplice. Thus, several hours pass since the incident. Charlotte told the knight that she didn't even know how to address him. But, in any case, the girl thanks him for his help. She hopes she wasn't rude and thanks him properly. The knight asks to be called simply Eugene. Before shaking hands, Eugene wants to ask something. But he doesn't make it in time, because Charlotte's younger brother Jaden appears. Jaden asks her to come back, as the city guard has returned to the estate. The brother hopes that Charlotte is not hurt. The girl didn't expect him to smile so strangely. Since Charlotte had to go, she told Eugene that they would talk later. The knight was a little upset that she left again. Charlotte understands that no knight wants to serve someone who brings shame to the family. Moreover, Charlotte used to often snap at the maids, but, thanks to this confusion, it was possible to replace the disrespectful ones. Suddenly, some guy jumps onto the girl's balcony. He asks Charlotte if she remembers him. The stranger says that they have already seen each other today. Charlotte immediately guessed that it was the knight Eugene. He is the leader of a mercenary squad and attracts the attention of influential figures. A man renowned for his monstrous strength across countless fields. No one had seen his face without his helmet, so everyone was afraid of Eugene. But despite all this, he is an incredibly handsome man. Charlotte thinks it's a cheat to have such a face and body. The heroine realized that Eugene had never taken off his helmet in front of her before. Eugene confirms this by showing his face for the first time. But Charlotte recognized him by the voice she had heard that afternoon. And now she is very surprised by his sudden visit. Eugene admits that he has something to say. Charlotte agreed to call him by his first name from that moment on. The girl modestly asked why he came to her room. Eugene states that he would like to sleep in her bed. Charlotte guesses that he has the same problems as Reynard. And Eugene himself says that the voice told him to come here. A voice in his head told him about red hair. Eugene is surprised that Charlotte understands him well. Its destructive power is beyond imagination. She asked him if he was going to go to bed in these clothes. While going to find him some clothes, Charlotte asks him to keep a low profile and hide if necessary. She then left the room, going in search of men's pajamas. In the laundry room, she manages to find what she needs. Her brother asks what she wants from his clothes. Charlotte didn't expect to see Jaden here, so she doesn't know what to answer. She said she was going to clean her clothes after noticing dust on them. Jaden decides to pretend that her story is true. Charlotte dared to ask why he had been so kind to her lately. Jaden noticed that she had been acting strange lately. She doesn't throw tantrums or create problems. Next time he has the chance, Jaden would like to talk to her. It's late now, so he returns to his room. Soon, Charlotte also returns to Eugene. To her surprise, she discovers that he is not there. As it turned out, Eugene was hiding on the floor under the bed. Charlotte herself told him to hide, just in case. The girl asks him not to do this next time. Eugene smiles because he recognized Charlotte by her steps. Charlotte thought she had been too familiar. Finally, she gives him his pajamas, allowing him to change. She wanted to go out for a while so that Eugene could change in peace. But before she could take a step, he had already started changing. Charlotte looked embarrassed. But Eugene didn't care whether she looked or not. Charlotte felt ashamed of her perverted thoughts. Either way, she couldn't take her eyes off him. After a few minutes, the knight changes completely into his pajamas. Finally, he lies down on a soft and cozy bed. Charlotte tells him to wake up tomorrow before the maid arrives. They wish each other good night and fall asleep. And in the morning, Charlotte wakes up because Eugene is on top of her. He was so close that the girl lost her breath. Eugene is not one to sleep peacefully. Charlotte suddenly wanted to touch his long eyelashes. In his sleep, Eugene pulls her closer to him. And after that, no matter how she lay down, he always turns towards her. Eugene is indeed very heavy and restless in his sleep. In the morning, the knight asks the girl if she slept well. But Charlotte, horrified, asked if it was really impossible to see from her face. Noticing that she doesn't look well, Eugene asks if everything is okay. Charlotte realizes that he didn't sleep like that on purpose. A maid's voice was heard in the corridor, announcing that Charlotte was late. Charlotte asks Eugene to come back, because now is not the time for talking. The man thanks her, hoping that they will see each other again. If the curse is lifted today, they are unlikely to see each other again. But Charlotte would be pleased if they met again. Charlotte's parents comment on how terrible she looks at breakfast. And this is true, because she only slept for about 2 hours. The mother is unhappy with this, because this way her daughter is disgracing her. She had a huge complex due to her simple origins. Jaden asks his mom to stop because Charlotte is behaving decently. The heroine still does not understand why her brother became like this. For the last 6 months that this body had taken possession of her, they hadn't even spoken normally. According to the author of the novel, Charlotte and Jaden had a bad relationship. The son of the late first Marquise, and the child brought forth by his new mother. Charlotte went from being a commoner to being the daughter of a marquise. When she grew up, all she did was let her family down. And the heroine is not sure whether she can continue to pretend to be Charlotte. Charlotte's father suggests that she go to a tea party for a change. Lately, the girl has been receiving invitations. Showing how many there are, the father asks to choose anyone. Charlotte is supposed to be a villain, but she's very popular. In addition to the letters, they sent her a basket of flowers. Its sender turned out to be Kirill. Charlotte doesn't understand at all why he sent her anything. He is known as the Archmage who flirts with all the ladies. He is one of the second male protagonists. Charlotte needs to confirm her guess if it is correct. This is a tea party that Kirill is supposed to attend. Charlotte suddenly agrees to attend the tea party, but her parents are worried that she doesn't have a partner. Given Charlotte's disastrous reputation, she certainly doesn't have anyone. Jaden says it's not necessary to bring a lover as a companion, so he agrees to go and be his sister's companion. This is too suspicious, and Charlotte should refuse. Jaden asked if she was really going to go with Kirill. In the end, her parents also don't mind her being with her brother. And then we are transferred to the estate of the Marquise of Mosella. Charlotte gets out of the carriage, and Jaden helps her down. The guests are indignant, because they heard that the brother and sister don't even communicate. Anyway, Kirill also noticed Charlotte Lindsay in the crowd. At the entrance, they are greeted by the tea party hostess. She completely ignores Charlotte and only looks at Jaden. But the heroine is glad that she doesn't seem to harbor any malice towards her. Kirill would like to compliment Charlotte's outfit with a bouquet. Charlotte thanks him shyly under her brother's watchful gaze. Kirill thanks her for accepting the invitation. He introduces himself to her, saying that he is a magician in the Imperial Palace. As expected, he proved irresistible. At that moment, Charlotte suddenly noticed her hostess's angry look. Because of this, she even forgot why she came to the tea party. In the original story, Evelyn is in love with Kirill. In any case, if Kirill has the same problem with voices, he will give a sign. But first, Charlotte needs to secure her own life. She just needs to get through this tea ceremony. Jaden asks her if she wants to see her friends. Charlotte replied that she had no friends. She asks him to ignore her and enjoy his tea. There's no one here for Jaden to get to know. Charlotte was afraid that he would be heard. But he didn't care. Lately, Jaden has been acting softer towards his sister, but whenever she asks about it, he evades the answer. Now she finds Jaden much more beautiful up close. Charlotte noticed the dark circles and asked if he was tired. Jaden waved it off, saying he was fine. He noted that the way Kirill looked at her was unusual. Since he is a known heartthrob, she should be careful. Charlotte decides to go for a walk, and Jaden doesn't have to accompany her. He will ask her if it is true that she is not going to listen to his advice. This made him angry, which was more like him. So the girl decides to go and meet Kirill. Since this is a romantic novel, the search method should work. To meet the main character, you need to meet in the garden. And so it happened that Kirill found her, asking worriedly what had happened. Charlotte is glad that they met again. Kirill guesses that she lured him here on purpose. It will be problematic if he suspects something. That's why Charlotte said she gets lonely quite easily. Kirill seems unaware of her reputation and position. Apart from Evelyn and Kirill, no one spoke to her today. Charlotte screams desperately that she is very lonely. She usually spends the whole day alone, from morning until night. She thanks him for listening to her and runs away. In the evening, as she expected, there was a knock on her window. She opened the shutters, welcoming Kirill as he arrived. He sincerely apologizes for visiting her at such a late hour, but Charlotte is sure he has a reason. He can tell her anything he wants. Kirill admits that he is too ashamed to say it. Charlotte threatens to take his hand if he doesn't tell her. It may seem threatening to others, but it should have an effect on him. Kirill asks how he can share a bed with a woman he is afraid to touch. Kirill was abandoned by his parents and raised by a teacher. His teacher insisted on a rather unusual method of teaching. Naturally, under such mentorship, he was always surrounded by men. Luckily, Kirill's older friend showed up and taught him how to deal with women. Full of confidence, Kirill went into the tower. But there was one problem waiting there. It turned out that the older comrade was a desperate womanizer. Unaware of this, Kirill practiced his lessons in the tower. Kirill was overly kind to girls he had no intention of dating. It didn't take long before rumors began to circulate that he was a womanizer. In this scenario, it seems as if he is asking women to fall in love with him. To sum it all up, Kirill believes that he is cursed. Charlotte finds it hard to believe, but she has no choice. She is a little awkward, but she agrees to offer her bed. Kirill grabbed her hands with happiness and thanked her. But, realizing this, he immediately jumped back, screaming in fear. The character she thought was a playboy turned out to be pure and innocent. Since it's already late, it would really be better for Kirill to spend the night here. Before this, Charlotte asks if he has any sleeping habits, and does he have a reaction to accidental touch in his sleep? When he replied that everything was fine, Charlotte offered to lie down next to him. Kirill swears he is not so shameless as to repay Charlotte with disrespect. He doesn't have the slightest impure thought towards her. He repeats that he has no interest in her in that sense. At this point, Charlotte asks him to stop. In any case, Kirill asks her to take care of him. Charlotte is not going to eat it, and she tells him to relax. But Kirill lies that he is comfortable lying in this position. But he seems to be repelled by the idea of getting close to her, so Charlotte forces him to lie down next to her. But she immediately thought that she had gone too far. Although she had not meant to, she had heard that Kirill got along very well with the opposite sex. But Kirill says that rumors and reality differ. He doesn't know where and what went wrong, that his life became like this. Charlotte believes that there is no need to behave in a certain way. She tells Kirill that he is good just the way he is. She also thinks that there is nothing wrong with him allowing himself to relax. This is what the main character Ayla said in the original story. Kirill is embarrassed, but thanks her for such kind words. According to the plot, he should have become even more embarrassed and blushed. Our heroine wants to play out her role to the fullest by inhabiting this body. The silver-haired mages are the best thing about this novel. For the first time in a long time, Charlotte slept well. It seems that the curse is actually lifted after one such night. In any case, the most important thing for her is the reward she receives afterwards. She expects a considerable sum from Reynard and wants to receive a magical instrument from Cariel. To avoid being portrayed as a villain, she needs to prepare. Charlotte would be sad if she never saw these three again. She wondered if the world would follow the novel if she retreated into the shadows. Charlotte tries not to think about sad things, because no one else is cursed. Jaden comes into her room, asking if she slept well last night. The parents were surprised at how well the brother and sister began to get along. Jaden replied that he and Charlotte had recently had a heart-to-heart talk, and if they made peace, then their parents have nothing more to wish for. But Charlotte knows that Jaden is lying to his parents. She is genuinely interested in what her brother is up to. Jaden's behavior is too suspicious, and Charlotte wants to know what's wrong. He suddenly says that his late mother loved spring flowers. In such an atmosphere, Charlotte doesn't know how to talk about it. Her brother asks her which of these flowers she likes the most. Since she can't decide, Jaden will choose it himself and give it to her. These flowers are probably dear to him, since his mother loved them. It's enough for Jaden that flowers can bring joy for several days. Charlotte, watching him, almost went crazy. She asked him to stop because he was scaring her. Charlotte asks him why he is acting so strange. She voices her suspicions about Jaden. Jaden just started thinking about her differently because she had changed. But it's too much for Charlotte that his attitude towards her has changed so abruptly. There must be a reason why he behaves this way. But Jaden planned to establish a more friendly relationship before saying anything. In fact, he has a favor to ask of Charlotte. When they find a more secluded spot, Jaden first wants to clarify something. He warns in advance that he is of sound mind and health. Finally, Jade asks her to sleep in her bed for one night. Charlotte didn't expect that Jaden would be cursed too. Reading this chapter, Jaden felt sorry for Charlotte. Charlotte agrees to give him a corner of her bed. Jaden isn't surprised that Charlotte doesn't believe him, even though she actually does. Jaden wasn't a villain, but he did give readers a strange feeling of discomfort. He doesn't love his sister, but he defended her throughout the novel. Since Charlotte was part of the family, he could not abandon her. He must have been tormented by problems with his sister and family. At the end of the novel, when Charlotte was expelled from her family, a plot twist occurred. And the twist is that Jaden had feelings for Ayla, but in the end he gave in, wishing Ayla happiness. The main character, reading this novel then, was indignant. Because of this strange request, Jaden wanted to win her favor. Charlotte hoped that he would tell her everything honestly from the very beginning. But Jaden really wanted to make their relationship work. Charlotte doesn't even believe that this is what her once rude brother is saying. But, be that as it may, Charlotte agreed. Jaden promises to do his best to repay this favor. He decides to ask if Kiriel had contacted her. When Charlotte replied no, he asked whose hair was on her pillow then. Charlotte realized that this was Kiriel's hair. Charlotte had to lie that it was her gray hair. Jaden swore he saw silver hair, but the girl denies it. In the end, she managed to convince him, and he believed her. Anyway, Jaden asks her to forget about Kiriel. He explains that in a real relationship, both parties value each other. This situation is also not entirely decent, even if they are brother and sister. So Jaden asks her to put up with her for one night. While Jaden was hesitating about living under the same roof with Charlotte, 3 others were already coming to visit her. Charlotte asks him if he thinks it was a bit too cruel. He knew she was always up late, but he never woke her up. Jaden tried to wake her up, but she didn't want to get up. Jaden also sided with his mother and did not protect her. One of the maids noted that today everything was somehow different. She felt that the atmosphere had become softer than before. Thus, a few more days pass. Charlotte finally felt free from curses. For her, lying around at home is self-analysis. However, she was curious when Renard would fulfill his promise. And at that very moment, Reynard's dove appeared on the window. Charlotte is excited to know what message he sent this time. He says that he will come in the evening, because there is something that needs to be discussed. Charlotte hoped she had already received payment. But no. In the evening, as Reynard wrote, he arrived at Charlotte's. The night air is cool, and he worries that Charlotte is outside. Charlotte simply couldn't sit still because of the letter she received. They return to the house. Charlotte asks what happened. Reynard, sighing heavily, admits that he can't sleep again. It turns out that the curse did not lift, but only died down for a while. Reynard would have strangled the one who cursed him if he had found him. He calms down and apologizes for losing his temper. Until he breaks this curse, he will need Charlotte's help. Charlotte kept expecting him to ask to sleep in her bed again. Of course, this is not just like that, and Renard promises to pay her. Charlotte explained to him how much interest he owed her. She also asks that everything be transferred through the central bank. Reynard was too tired the last time they met, but now he understood everything. Charlotte saw him run his tongue over his lips and nearly went crazy. If it had been anyone else in front of her, she would have written it off as weirdness. Reynard, traumatized by his nanny's betrayal, does this every time. In the original story, it came out when he wanted to get to know the main character. Seeing it firsthand, Charlotte understood the full scope of the impact. Reynard says that Charlotte never forced obsessive love on Duke Hicklid. About 6 months ago, she caused a huge scandal. So Reynard thought she would ask for something like revenge on the Duke, and not money. Reynard suspects her, but as long as she is his key to the curse, he will not touch her. But no one said she had to remain unharmed for it to work. Reynard couldn't meet right away and asked for too much. Suddenly, the night Eugene knocked on the window, asking if Charlotte was asleep. Charlotte certainly didn't expect him to come here. Reynard wonders who it could be at such a late hour. Charlotte promises to explain everything later, asking him to hide. She then returns to Eugene, asking what he is doing here. She gently says that she has some circumstances and asks him to leave. She promises him that she will definitely be free tomorrow. But Eugene no longer listened to her because he wanted to check who was in the room. Charlotte was already thinking that she should confess honestly, but this will definitely seem like complete nonsense to both of them. So she has to lie that it is her younger brother. Eugene feels the aura of a strong fighter who has reached great heights. Charlotte mentally apologizes to her brother for this. In the end, Eugene leaves, and Charlotte says goodbye to him. Charlotte felt like she had lost several years of her life because of the scare. Reynard almost grabbed his sword, mistaking him for a murderer. Finally, Charlotte invites him to go to bed. Since she is very important to him, he wants to treat her properly. But if he talks like that, people might think up a lot of unnecessary things. In the morning, Reynard asks if Charlotte has thought about living on her own. Since Reynard can't always sneak in here, he suggests that she move in. But Charlotte had no plans to go anywhere anytime soon. The girl wondered how she could remove the curse. Suddenly, Reynard asks her if she will marry him. He believes that in the current circumstances, marriage will solve everything. He proposes to get married as soon as possible. But it's strange for Charlotte to propose marriage so abruptly. Reynard doesn't even care that she was born a commoner. Charlotte asks if he's really ready for this. The whole point is that he doesn't love her. Reynard laughed, telling her how amazing she was. He asks how many royals actually marry for love. If there is respect and understanding for each other, then that is enough. As Charlotte thought, love means nothing to Reynard. But in the end, in the novel, Reynard still experienced love. In the novel, Reynard is considered a perpetual bachelor. But since he is the crown prince, he needs an heir. Reynard proposes to hold the ceremony within 3 months. But Charlotte gives up on this idea due to lack of love. Charlotte will begin to search for true love once she lets go of Duke Hicklid. But Reynard proposes marriage, and love will blossom later. He tells Charlotte that no one knows what the future holds for them. The cliché of romantic novels is always about falling in love in a marriage of convenience. The man asks to just stay with him until the curse is lifted. But after the curse is lifted, Reynard can actually fall in love. Charlotte could have fallen in love too, if not for a few nuances. She's not sure she can survive with Reynard around. Charlotte doesn't want to marry on hope alone. Reynard said that then they would just get divorced. He would provide her with compensation and send her abroad. Either way, Charlotte still can't accept the offer. She has 3 more characters she will have to share a bed with. Reynard gives in, understanding her decision. But instead of marriage, he suggests announcing that they are just dating. But in reality, he was joking, just trying to tease her. Charlotte is sure that if she were in another person's place, she would not have missed such an opportunity. Reynard considers himself more perfect than Cedric Hicklid. Charlotte agrees with him that he is much better. She tries to babble on about what she likes about him. Reynard hopes that this opinion will never change. Since they are going to be in the same boat for a long time, they should work well together. He noticed that Charlotte was hesitating and asked why. But she grabbed his hand, saying that she was glad of their cooperation. Lying in bed, she didn't even have time to realize that night had come. Charlotte still hoped that she would be able to rest. But Eugene arrived. Eugene also said that the curse had returned. Charlotte doesn't know how to deal with them all. When Eugene changed his clothes, Charlotte found him very cute. She thought that she wanted to pet him. She allowed him to sleep only on the condition that she tied him up. It's all because of his bad sleeping habits. Charlotte asked if he allowed her to tie him up. But when she did this, she felt somehow uneasy. Eugene asks to tie him up so that the knot does not come undone. He sits down in front of her, declaring that he is ready for her to do it. She finally tied him up so that he couldn't move. It must be awkward that he agreed to it without any doubts. Eugene says everything is fine and asks to cover him. At that very moment, the girl's brother knocks on her room. He asks if he can come in for a minute. If he sees this, he will think Charlotte is a pervert. She looked out and asked why he was here so late. He replied that he had urgent business, but Charlotte insisted that he speak here. Jaden admits to seeing a black figure on her terrace. That's why he enters the room to check. Eventually, Jaden saw a pillow tied up on the bed. He would never have thought that his sister had such a hobby. Charlotte is glad that Eugene was able to hide, but now she needs to find a way out. Jaden apologized for coming in and decided to leave immediately. He disappears behind the door, wishing his sister good night. Charlotte was almost scared to death, but she was glad that Jaden was gone. Eugene, who had been hiding, emerged from his hiding place. The rope itself came undone when he pulled on it. He thought it would be strange if the rope was just lying on the bed. Charlotte noted that the pillow was firmly knitted. Eugene was afraid of upsetting her, because she had taken such great care in tying it on him. The girl was embarrassed by the unexpected closeness. He should have said that the rope was weak. Eugene apologizes, but he did nothing wrong. Since it's already late, Charlotte suggests just going to bed. She is glad that she can watch Eugene sleeping. Since the curse would not be lifted anytime soon, Charlotte allowed him to come once a week. Eugene knows he must repay such favor, so he promises Charlotte that he will definitely thank her. He assures that he always keeps his promises. Charlotte agreed, saying she would remember it. But after that, he immediately pushed her away and went to bed. A few days later, Jaden comes to visit Charlotte. He is surprised that she has letters in her hands, because she has no friends. Jaden admits that last time, he couldn't shake the strange feeling. He's glad nothing happened to Charlotte. She told him that he worried too much. Charlotte appreciates his concern, but now is not the right time. Jaden said that her mom had a message for her. If Charlotte gets involved with Duke Hicklid, Mama will send her to a convent. Charlotte promises him that this will not happen again. Then they send us the next day to the hardware store. But, unfortunately, that's where she met Hicklid. It seems to him that she is beginning to show her true face again. In this case, Mom will definitely send Charlotte to the store. Charlotte asks the Duke how he is doing, but Hicklid asked if she had really been following him since she ended up here. In the original, Charlotte terrorized Isla, stalked Cedric, and harassed them both. So this time she should apologize properly. She is sure that no matter how many times she asks for forgiveness, it will not be enough. Her attempts to ruin the lives of Cedric and Isla cannot be justified in any way. But Hicklid still thinks she's up to something. Charlotte hands him a letter of apology, which she always carries with her. The others began to whisper that Charlotte had suddenly changed. Cedric doesn't believe in her repentance, thinking that she didn't even write the letter. Charlotte realizes that her sins are difficult to forgive. But if she has proof that she's not following Cedric, he'll believe her. Only the store manager knew that Hicklid would be coming today. But suddenly, Charlotte realized how to prove her innocence. As proof, Charlotte shows her entry into the store. But initially, she didn't get it, so she started looking for the right one. She tells him that she signed up here in advance. That's why she came. Cedric doesn't believe her at all, because it's difficult to make an appointment at the store. Anyone could write such a letter, so Hicklid doesn't believe it. But suddenly, a man approached him, asking what business he had with his guest. He introduces himself as the deputy manager of this store. In fact, this is the first time Hicklid has heard about this. A man approaches Charlotte and asks her to get up from the floor. Looking closer, Charlotte recognized him as Kiriel. Charlotte plays along and thanks him. Kiriel asks Hicklid how he dared to let her kneel. Cedric asks him to mind his own business. Kiriel welcomes Charlotte to the store. He invites her to wait in the VIP room while the owner is away. But Cedric signed up with the owner first. Kiriel replied that he couldn't now, since Charlotte was his personal guest. Hicklid still insists on seeing the manager first. Since he doesn't have an official warrant to investigate, Kiriel won't let him through. He is not obliged to show himself or give his name. In the end, Kiriel escorts Charlotte to the VIP room. Kiriel apologizes for the wait, as the time was not right. Kiriel accidentally touched her, and only now realized it. 5 minutes have passed, and Charlotte asks if they can talk. Kiriel said that he received the letter that Charlotte sent him. It's hard for Kiriel to get used to this with his peculiarities. He gives the impression of being an annoying person from Hicklid. But he immediately apologized, because they remembered that Charlotte liked Hicklid. But Charlotte gave in to her quest for love. Charlotte apologized for a mistake she made in the past. Kiriel thinks she's too good for someone like Hicklid. It must be the curse if Kiriel is so kind to her. She asks Kiriel not to praise her so much. Charlotte wanted one of his inventions as a reward. But in reality, Charlotte has a different purpose for being here. Kirill easily agrees and asks to follow her. He asks her to look around and not to rush. If there's something Charlotte wants, he'll give it to her. First, Kirill shows her a fan for the heat. Then, he shows a thing that will scare away insects with its aroma. He shows her a bunch of different things that might be useful somewhere. Charlotte asks if she can buy something with money. But these magical items are almost priceless. But Charlotte wants to get the item she really needs. He was upset that she didn't like his inventions. But that wasn't true. There is just something that the heroine needs right now. In the end, Kirill brings her the box. Charlotte says this is just what she needs. Inside the box was a hunting rope. This will allow Charlotte to tie up Eugene. Kirill admits that he has one more request. He knows that from the outside it may look shameless. But he asks her to sleep in her bed again. Charlotte agrees, allowing him to come this evening. She tells Kirill that he has nothing to apologize for. The news had already reached the parents that Charlotte had apologized to Cedric on her knees. The father apologizes that no one believed her apologies. Charlotte thanks them for believing her. Her parents believe it is time for her to return to high society. All this because she apologized to the Duke? Her father will arrange a match for her, so she will go to the meeting. Charlotte hates this high society. Her reputation is still tarnished. She was recently doused with champagne. Charlotte just hates it, so she doesn't want to let anyone near her. Suddenly, Kirill appears, stating that he would never have thought that she hated him so much. He is ashamed that someone like him asks to sleep in Charlotte's bed. But Charlotte told him that it wasn't him she was upset about. Kirill believes that he has a lot of problems because he is afraid of women. Charlotte guesses that Kirill is not easy in everyday life. The last time she said something she didn't mean, things got more complicated. This time, she decided to say it her way. But suddenly, she found herself too close to him. He said he just wanted to remove a feather that was stuck to his back. After that, he immediately screamed and jumped out of bed. Because Kirill can't sleep, he thinks the curse has been lifted. He is very worried that Charlotte cannot sleep, but she thinks he is much more tired than she is. So, just in case, he prepared something. This is a magical device that helps you fall asleep. If you concentrate on this, you can fall asleep. Kirill himself fell for it and quickly fell asleep. But what's the point then if he fell asleep instead of Charlotte? But this is for the best, because Kirill is very tired. Charlotte is glad that he can finally rest. She is afraid to move, because Kirill might wake up. But in the end, she managed to move. She wanted to get up, when suddenly she began to fall. Kirill, who had woken up, managed to catch her, asking if everything was okay. Kirill asks worriedly if she is hurt. Charlotte casually reminds him that their hands touched. In the morning, Kirill leaves, thinking that he will visit Charlotte in 10 days. Before he comes, he will send the girl a letter. Kirill gives her a flower before he leaves. Today, Charlotte decided to stay at home and not go anywhere. Her mother came into her room and asked if she had slept well. Noticing the flower, the mother thought that it was the flirting wizard who had brought her a basket again. In fact, she came to announce the date of the meeting. Cedrina's heir is famous for being a handsome man. Charlotte agrees to try, because it's just a date. A few days later, their meeting took place. Charlotte doesn't even understand where she is or what's going on. It's immediately obvious that her mother liked the man. Perhaps Charlotte had seen too many hot guys. She's a little irritated by the way he brags about himself. Unexpectedly, Charlotte saw Eugene in this pastry shop. She wondered why the knight needed so many desserts. Seeing him eat, Charlotte is touched by his cuteness. She feels how her eyes and ears, which died from this idiot, are calling to life. It seems like a cliché would happen here, with the protagonist interfering with the heroine's date. Eugene will say that Charlotte belongs to him and ask you not to touch her. Her partner thought she was feeling unwell. 30 minutes later, he continues talking about himself. He asks if the Marquis of Lindsay mentioned the inheritance. He assumes that her brother will take the inheritance himself and leave them penniless. But Charlotte knows that Jaden would never do that. If he were in his place, he would never have acknowledged a commoner as his mother. This made Charlotte furious, so now she's had enough. She will not stay with someone who insults her family, but the man asks her to stay, allegedly saying this out of concern. But Charlotte guesses that he is simply chasing her fortune. Her mother was always ostracized for being a commoner, and because of Charlotte's problems, people pointed fingers at her even more. And even despite this, she never gave up. Charlotte doesn't think her mother deserves this. Eugene intervenes in their argument, telling the man that she doesn't like it. But he digs in his heels and asks him not to interfere in their affairs. The knight asks the heroine if she is okay. The man became furious, asking how Eugene dared to touch him. His sudden movement caused all of Eugene's desserts to fall to the floor. Eugene is going to take revenge on him, but Charlotte tries to stop him. Workers run into the room, asking what is going on here. Noticing the cafe staff, Charlotte realizes they need to run. She promises to buy Eugene as much sweets as he wants. The knight suddenly picks her up in his arms and asks her to hold on tighter. After this, he runs away with her, jumping from the balcony. Judging by the workers' faces, it seems they can't catch up with them. Eugene asked Charlotte if she could cope on her own from now on. The girl is still embarrassed that he carried her like a princess. This is how her very first date by appointment ended. Upon hearing what had happened, the father exploded with anger. Mom promised she wouldn't force me to go on blind dates anymore. And so Charlotte finally became free, just as she wanted. Later, Charlotte was going to bake cookies for Eugene. But in this novel, there are no electric ovens, so the cookies burned. Charlotte was in no hurry to get upset, hoping to find another way out. On the way to her, Eugen thought about how soft she was and how nicely she smelled. He can't even believe that today he will taste her cookies. Charlotte, as always, meets him on the balcony. She reminds him that she promised to buy sweets and everything else. Suddenly, Eugene smelled something burning. He found cookies in the box, guessing that they were his. Charlotte admitted that it was a little overheated. Eugene decided to eat them anyway, because Charlotte tried. Since she made it for him, he is obliged to eat it. But, as expected, the cookies tasted terrible. It's time to go to bed. Eugene can pick up the rest tomorrow. Eugen asks with interest where she got the rope. Now with this rope, Charlotte will be able to sleep normally. When Eugen wanted to ask something, their faces were unexpectedly close. He says that Charlotte should hold the knot tightly so that the rope does not come undone. For now, the one they accept seems confusing. Eugene fell asleep pretty quickly, and Charlotte tried her best too. In the morning, Eugene asks the girl if everything is okay. Their conversation was interrupted by a maid who informed Charlotte that it was time to get ready. Eugene leaves and promises to return in a week. In fact, when Charlotte hugged him, he was still awake. He didn't think the knot could be held with such a small hand. Charlotte's even breathing tickled his neck. He just wanted this week to pass quickly. The next day, Charlotte comes to breakfast a little tired. She tells her parents that everything is fine and that incident is in the past. Her mother suddenly mentions that her birthday is just around the corner. They decided to throw a grand banquet for her. This is a very important event, so Charlotte cannot refuse. It was Jaden's idea. He was worried about his sister. Charlotte could have told Jaden right away that she didn't want to, but she asked him to shut his mouth before she pushed him off the bed. She already imagines how people provoke her into quarrels, and the main thing is that she doesn't want to run into Isla and Cedric at all. But Jaden remembers that Charlotte never listened to others. The heroine became so accustomed to her brother that she forgot to play the role of Charlotte. Charlotte also noticed that she began to behave unusually. Jaden asks if she remembers what she said to him on the court 10 years ago. She is already afraid to imagine what will happen if she guesses wrong. She says she doesn't remember the past very well, but her brother asks her to think about it. Since the phrase was in her repertoire, Charlotte repeats that she is not angry and asks to be left alone. It turns out that she yelled at him then, just like she did now. Charlotte was unhappy that Jaden was giving up because the training was going badly. This actually made Jaden want to train even harder. For him, it was a memorable moment, but for Charlotte, it was a trifle. Then she told him that there was no point in being sad because of the fear of breaking something. So Charlotte shouldn't be afraid of anything unnecessarily. Jaden assures that their family will always stand by her. He was just trying to cheer her up, and now he's gone to bed. She asks him to wait at least 5 minutes. Jaden's desire to be recognized wasn't out of anger. In fact, he hoped that his sister would at least glance in his direction once. He is sure that they could be good brother and sister. Jaden didn't know what a childhood dream was. The next day, Charlotte goes into town with the new knight Calix. Calix asked if she wanted to buy herself a dress for her birthday. Suddenly, on their way, they come across a lady who asks how Charlotte dared to come here. Charlotte has so many enemies that she finds it hard to remember who they are. The lady asked if she was getting into trouble again, but Calix told her that she was asking for it now. This lady's family must be of high standing. The heroine asks Calix what dress he likes. The lady flared up because they were completely ignoring her. That's why the girl dared to slap the knight. Charlotte, frightened, asks if he is okay. The lady said he should have moved away instead of putting himself in harm's way. Charlotte gets angry and asks the lady to apologize to Calix. The fact that Calix is a simple knight does not give this lady a reason to insult him. At this moment, Ayla suddenly appears, asking what is going on. Of all the people Charlotte could have met, it was Isla. Isla quietly asks Jane what happened here. Jane is a fairly important supporting character. Isla apologizes on Jane's behalf for being rude, but Charlotte wants the apology to be for Calix, because he was the one who suffered, so she asks Jane to apologize to the knight. Jane does not consider herself guilty, thinking that she is being accused in vain. She reminds Charlotte of how she treated Isla. If Jane is not stopped, she will continue to chatter endlessly. Charlotte eventually apologizes to make her shut up. Charlotte apologizes to Isla for those actions, and she understands perfectly well that no words will wash away her sins. She is willing to apologize if kneeling will ease Ayla's heart. Ayla suddenly runs up to her and asks her to stop. She says that she has already accepted her apology, and that is enough. It seems that Isla has that very aura of the main character. Isla hopes that Charlotte will forgive Jane's rudeness. Charlotte agrees only if she apologizes to Calix. Isla tells Jane that she knows she is a good person. She is confident that Jane is capable of admitting her mistakes. In the end, Jane apologizes to Knight Calix. Ayla's words have a strange power to touch and convince people. Charlotte will have to deal with Isla all the time, so she also apologizes to Jane for her rudeness. She said that out of jealousy towards Ayla, she slandered her. The heroine can no longer ruin people's shopping, so she asks them to leave. Before leaving, Ayla asks to send her invitations to the birthday banquet. But if Ayla comes, then Cendric will come too. But Charlotte eventually agrees to send one invitation. It so happened that Charlotte never bought herself a dress. She decided that she would rest a little and then take a bath. Crown Prince Reynard unexpectedly appeared in her room. Before this, he sent a message via pigeon that he would come today. Charlotte apologizes for completely forgetting about it. Reynard asks her where his invitation is, but Charlotte thinks it would create risks if he showed up there. In the novel, Reynard always acted only in his own interests. People will definitely find it strange that he will appear. It will become a rumor. Everyone will be discussing why the Crown Prince attended the banquet of the troublemaker. Reynard himself knows that her reputation is not the best. Charlotte hopes he won't insist on the invitation. Reynard asks if she went dress shopping today. This begs the question of why she returned empty-handed. Charlotte doesn't understand how he knows where she was. Reynard only believes what he sees, and Charlotte is not the type to hurt anyone. Charlotte realized that Reynard had been following her today, but Reynard says his eyes are everywhere in the Empire. It turns out he ordered his men to spy on the girl. The Crown Prince would not have had time to play the stalker. Reynard was just joking when he said he would come to her ball, but he was still curious about who would come to her. Reynard asks if she'll be embarrassed if Cedric shows up there. Charlotte denies this, saying that she is no longer in love with him. For some reason, Reynard says that this is a relief for him. The main character looked at him questioningly. Charlotte finally moves on the bed so they can lie down. It's amazing how she can sleep so peacefully next to a stranger. Reynard actually asked to keep an eye on her and report on every step. Initially, the Crown Prince did indeed suspect her. He suddenly thought that a girl like Charlotte was rare. He leaves thinking that this will be a great birthday present. When Charlotte woke up, she noticed that Reynard had already left. She felt uneasy at the thought that the curse could be because of her. But since this is a world of romantic fantasy, there must be a way. As a result, 3 hours later, Charlotte is already praying in the temple. The priests discuss how Charlotte has finally calmed down. They are surprised by her noble posture, certain that she hears Yomekna's voice. Yomekna is a goddess who was mentioned in the novel. She never appeared fully in the book, but was referenced many times. Charlotte is confident that she has a high chance of communicating with her. But 2 hours later, no one answered her prayers. Therefore, the girl came to the conclusion that God simply does not exist. And in that moment of despair, she heard a voice promising to help her. She has already started apologizing for everything she said. But the goddess asks to come to her, and she will help her. She asks you to follow her and open the door that will be ahead. When Charlotte found herself next to her, she wondered if this was really the right place. But the goddess confirms that this is exactly what is needed. She asks the girl to destroy the statue, and then her troubles will be solved. The troubles that beset her will disappear, and the goddess will help with this. But Charlotte believes that one voice is not enough for the all-powerful goddess. The goddess kept repeating that she should destroy the statue. She promises Charlotte to give her eternal fame and wealth. The goddess insists on destroying the statue, or she will curse the girl. One of the priests heard a noise coming from the door. Out of fear, Charlotte accidentally hits the statue, causing it to break. A broken statue, a forbidden zone, and Charlotte Lindsay caught in the act. Since the statue is broken, Charlotte asks, "What about the promised fame and fortune?" As it turned out, the vase was simply broken by a cat running past. After this, the girl ran out of the room in panic. She wants to get home as soon as possible and rest. Luckily, she sleeps alone tonight, and no one will come to her. When Charlotte looked in the mirror, she saw a black cat on her head. She got scared and jumped up from her chair in horror. It seems that the maid doesn't see this cat. The cat tells her that she is a pretty good person. Charlotte asked in horror if it was a fake cat. She thinks that maybe the cat has a message for her, but the cat simply became curious about what kind of person she was. Charlotte didn't let her stay here, but she decided for her. It turns out that only Charlotte can see her. The cat is going to live here with her until she gets bored. She is also an ancient god, like Yomekna, but a little different. Charlotte might never have been able to contact Yomekna. She thought that the cat wanted to gain strength and asked for Yomekna, but this is not so. Much of the original power has faded away as the cat was sealed for so long, but neither he nor Yomekna can harm her directly. This is how the girl understands that she has nothing to fear. She asks the cat to be quiet because she is going to bed. At the very least, she expects a little courtesy from her new partner. Time passed, and there was only one day left until the birthday banquet. Charlotte asks Jagan what she looks like. Her brother said that it suits her, even though the style of the dress is different from the previous ones. Charlotte just wanted to try something new. She can't imagine the face he'll make if she tells him it's a gift from the crown prince. She would never have thought that he would send something so expensive. The cat wouldn't say that this dress suits her, but it's not bad either. As it turns out, he can read her thoughts, so he knows about her discontent. He asks her not to worry, because he doesn't like crowded places either. Jaden takes Charlotte's hand and they walk away. The girl thanks the guests for coming to her banquet. Her parents, looking at her, can't believe how beautiful she looks. Guests compliment Charlotte's appearance and her dress, but there were also those who believed that she did not deserve such praise. They are glad that Kiriel did not come here. Lady Vetten decides to speak to the birthday girl. She asks which studio Charlotte ordered the dress from. She seemed to understand that the dress was from the crown prince. Vetten said it was obvious that Charlotte had stolen the dress from Lady Bean. Judging by how confused she was, it was true. Vetten had never heard of Lindsay's house ever ordering a pure white dress. Charlotte cannot afford to let her reputation sink any lower. Suddenly, she hears a familiar male voice behind her. Reynard says his taste never fails and kisses Charlotte's wrist. He was sure that this dress would suit Charlotte perfectly. And then he asks these ladies what they think. The other guests were surprised that Reynard came here. Vetten asks if it is true that His Highness gave the dress to Charlotte. This is indeed true, so she will have to apologize for her behavior. But Vetten makes excuses that she was just worried. Isla, on the other hand, thinks it was an attempt to insult Lady Lindsay. Vetten didn't expect to see Lady Bean here, but Ayla sent her an invitation. Everyone around is asking Vettine not to make the situation worse and to apologize. She chuckled and apologized, saying she was wrong. It was obviously completely insincere, but Charlotte accepts the apology. Vetten was about to leave when she suddenly tripped. The guests say they won't see Vettine in high society for some time. Charlotte sent her an invitation, but didn't think she would actually come. Isla greets Reynard and wishes Charlotte a happy birthday. Charlotte thanks Lady Bean for coming. Reynard also congratulates the heroine on her birthday. Reynard had originally planned to go hunting with Duke Hicklid. At that very moment, Hicklid arrives, looking for Ayla. He insisted that they should come to this celebration immediately. Ayla didn't expect to see him and asked what he was doing there. But he asks for what other reason one could be here, if not for congratulations. Reynard asks Charlotte to wait here for a minute. It was obvious that Hicklid thought that Charlotte would hurt Isla. He is sure that Charlotte invited Isla for ulterior motives. Reynard says that Hicklid should leave. He reminds that he doesn't actually have an invitation. The family is unlikely to appreciate an uninvited guest wandering around the room. In fact, Reynard was joking, and Charlotte should certainly be glad to see him. After all, Hicklid is the one Charlotte once adored. Reynard has gotten rid of his problems, and now invites Charlotte to continue the conversation elsewhere. Charlotte said it would be an honor for her. Reynard admits that he has already gotten used to the terrace of her house. Charlotte doesn't understand why Reynard is acting this way. She doesn't think it was okay to embarrass Cedric. Reynard asked her what she was thinking about so intently. If she has any worries, she can tell him. She should be happy that all these people came to congratulate her. But for Charlotte, it would be better to have a small celebration. Reynard had prepared another gift for her, besides the dress. One dress is not enough for him. There is something more important. He wants to ask Charlotte if she will become his wife. But he is interrupted by an unexpected cry coming from below. The wyvern that Count Mont was hunting was captured. It seems that this is a gift, because Wyvern ended up in the estate. Reynard didn't expect that Charlotte invited Eugene too. He discreetly sent her an airplane in the form of a letter. Reynard wonders what is written there. What makes her smile? It's possible that she just prefers Wyvern. But still, for some reason, the Crown Prince feels dissatisfied. Eugene congratulates Charlotte on the holiday and writes that Wyvern meat is healthy. The knight notices her positive reaction and is glad that she liked it. The guests continue to discuss him, talking about his armor. Everyone thinks he's trying to mend fences with the Marquis of Lindsay. The deputy commander mentioned that the gift should be discreet. There are people here that Eugene doesn't feel comfortable meeting. He is also curious about what Crown Prince Reynard is doing here. Ian warned that dealing with the royal family was always a hassle. Since they had their own mission, he asked the captain not to forget about it. The knight's presence really did attract too much attention. Reynard felt that there was no particular connection between Charlotte and Eugene. For some reason, he became too preoccupied with this moment. Saying that he needs to go back, Reynard wishes the girl a good holiday. She thought she had done something wrong for him to leave so suddenly. Reynard looked upset, and Charlotte noticed it. She better find out what happened quickly. She tried to find him, but she couldn't. In the end, the party ended without her ever finding Reynard. Returning to her room, Charlotte is going to tidy herself up. Someone tells her that she can't go to bed without removing her makeup. It turned out to be Reynard, who was already waiting for her here. He asks her not to worry because he is not going to stay. Charlotte asked him if he was still angry. Reynard confirms that he was indeed angry. He himself does not fully understand why he was waiting for her here. Suddenly, Reynard puts a ring on her finger. He had wanted to do this since the moment he saw her at the party. Next time, he promises to give something cooler than Wyvern. As Charlotte thought, Reynard turned out to be a good guy. He replenished her safe after her request, and now he showers her with gifts. The cat returns to the room, asking if he can come in. Charlotte herself asked him to stay here. The cat says that this man is strange. He explains that this man's fate is sealed. It seems that some forces changed his destiny from the very beginning. Reynard's fate bears the mark of intervention. This is the work of the master of this change, Yomekna. This may mean that the plot will change as well. Charlotte suspects that Yomekna has placed a curse on her bed. Now she needs to explain everything, so she asks you to listen carefully. Charlotte says that this is a world from a novel, and she came here from another world. Obviously, the cat won't just believe this nonsense, but Charlotte convinces him that she is telling the pure truth. She thought she was dead, but then she opened her eyes and found herself here. The cat touches her forehead, checking if her mind is all right. One way or another, this world is not just a fictional story. Perhaps someone from the heroine's world looked into this world and wrote a novel about it. Charlotte allowed the thought that this could happen, but her main problem is not whether all this is true or not. She wants to tell him everything if he promises not to laugh. But 10 minutes later, the cat is already rolling on the floor, laughing. The cat doesn't feel any curse energy around the girl. In essence, the little comment the heroine wrote became real. Charlotte asked him if there was anything he could do to fix it. Unfortunately, the power over this dimension belongs to Yomekna. Charlotte asks him to contact her, but he is not allowed to cross paths with her. But Charlotte doesn't understand why. Because they are both gods. Charlotte can't just call the Emperor either. She didn't expect that the gods of their romances would be so difficult to meet. But if Isla is the main character, then Yomekna must watch her. But Charlotte won't be able to find out about this so easily because of Cedric. The cat suggests that fulfilling Charlotte's wish will lift the bed's curse. When she wrote that comment, she just wanted to be in bed with a man. That's why the cat asks to share sweet love with him. Charlotte tells him that there is no point in this. Charlotte tried to break the curse, and now the cat asks to share her love. But she initially wanted romance, but now she doesn't want it. Charlotte reminds him that she is not the main character, but the male roles as in the original, fall in love with Ayla. Everyone sees Charlotte as Ayla's martyr and villain. In the worst case, the men in love could kill Charlotte. But Reynard's fate is already distorted and changed in any case. The cat also noticed that Charlotte always used words that were unknown to him. She has no intention of returning to the previous plot. Charlotte wondered if she really deserved love. She is ashamed every time she sees secondary characters suffer because of her. The cat asks her to forget about her past life, because in essence she was born again here. The next day, Charlotte comes to the magic shop. She told Kirill that the magic rope had broken. But this rope is strong enough to hold an animal the size of a house. Still, Kirill apologizes for the inconvenience caused. He feels that this is why she didn't invite him to her birthday party. Charlotte noted that even a gloomy Kirill looked beautiful. She even thought that she had fallen in love with him, but Charlotte did not invite him so that he would not feel awkward among women. Lately, Kirill has been studying noble manners. Charlotte asks him to throw away the book because everything in it is wrong. Kirill doesn't understand what he was doing all this time. Charlotte remembers what Isla advised in such cases. After moving into the fantasy world, the heroine wrote the plot of an original story. The heroine carefully studied the memories of her past life. Kirill asks what she's looking at there. From that moment on, she asks him to give gifts worth more than 30 gold pieces. He should also try to exchange personal letters. Kirill asks how he can thank Charlotte. Although it was late, he prepared a birthday present for her. He shows her a self-contained magical cleaning tool. It's just a robot vacuum cleaner that somehow ended up in this world. But it would be cheaper to hire a maid for the house. Kirill didn't even think about this, suspecting that his gift was useless. But Charlotte took the gift in her hands, saying that she liked it. Kirill's inventions are a step in the process of errors. Maybe in the future everyone will use his things. Kirill thanks Charlotte for accepting his gift. The next day, Charlotte comes to the bookstore. A stalker should appear here, who is bothering Kirill. Charlotte can't just stand there and watch someone bother him. Yesterday, Kirill confessed to Charlotte that he was being followed. Lady Evelyn has been constantly following him around lately. According to Kirill, she often appears in the bookstore. Charlotte is interested in what books are popular in this world. Unexpectedly, she met Vetten and her minions. She told Vetten that she was glad to see her outside the estate. Vetten jokes that Charlotte was kicked out by the Marquises. She says that a lady who loses her parents' love becomes a rat. But Charlotte came here for books, not for meaningless chatter. Vetten grabbed her hand and stopped her. She asks if she really thinks that Hicklid will forgive her so easily. Vetten is sure that Charlotte will soon start doing mischief again. As it turned out, the real Charlotte was bullying Isla along with Vetten. And now there is a chance that Vetten will be under fire from the discussion. Whatever Charlotte says, Vetten will still decide in his own way. Charlotte wanted to wait for Evelyn, but she would have to leave. But suddenly, someone tells her that she dropped a book. The girl asked her in surprise how she knew her name. Vettine recognizes the girl, saying that this is an unexpected meeting. And suddenly, Charlotte realizes that this is Evelyn. Evelyn asks Vetten why such unceremonious people came to the store. Vetten makes excuses that Charlotte started it first. Evelyn admitted that she watched them and saw everything. From now on, she asks Vetten to be careful. Vetten's minions also think it's time for them to stop picking on each other. Charlotte doesn't understand why Evelyn is suddenly so kind to her. Surprisingly, Evelyn even paid for her book. In fact, Charlotte grabbed the first book she came across, but it turned out that this book was also to Evelyn's taste. Evelyn happily asks Charlotte to become friends. The nobility usually looked down on books for adults. Therefore, Evelyn was forced to carefully hide her hobbies. Charlotte asks Kirill why Evelyn might be stalking him. That's because Kirill is remarkably similar to the character from that book. The image of a flirting magician coincided with the image of Kirill. And if Kirill behaves differently, Evelyn might leave him alone. But the established image cannot be easily erased. Hearing the words of the Golden God, Charlotte looked at Kirill as if he were a man. It went beyond simple admiration, to the point where her heart was about to burst. Before, it was like adoring a favorite idol, but Charlotte asks him not to worry, as she has already found a way out. They just need to publish a novel that is much more interesting than this one. And now they don't have time to stand there in a daze. Kirill doesn't want Charlotte to go that far because of him, but Charlotte asks him not to refuse and to accept help. After leaving the Tower of the Mages, Kirill worked tirelessly at court. He smiled at everyone he met to gain their favor. But this was the wrong path, and misunderstandings became even greater. No matter how hard Kirill tried, people refused to communicate with him. He even thought about returning to the Tower of Magicians. Kirill thought that he would have to continue living alone. He thanks Charlotte for her help and kindness. Today, Charlotte asks him to give it his all. Soon, Charlotte meets Evelyn for the second time. Charlotte noticed how she had changed since their last meeting. Evelyn apologizes for her behavior at the tea party, but for Charlotte, it is already in the past. Last time, Charlotte promised to bring an unpublished edition of the novel. The girl secretly shares that the content here is very explicit. Of course, these novels are works of art. Charlotte asks to read it, and then share your impressions. Evelyn would also like to read and discuss other novels. Charlotte hopes that Evelyn will stop pursuing Kirill, because they created this manuscript for 3 whole days. At some point, Renard suddenly felt goosebumps run through his body. A whole day spent reading is really tiring. Charlotte is greeted by Kirill, who thanks her for her work. She thanks him for coming all this way for the meeting. The girl suddenly remembered that Kirill didn't like being touched. He should have recoiled from her in shock. But surprisingly, Kirill is calm now. Kirill reminded her about the sedatives, but Charlotte no longer needed them. Kirill would still like to help her, but Charlotte replied that that's what friends are for. Kirill seemed a little upset that she called him just a friend. The cat told Charlotte that only love could break the curse. Charlotte doesn't understand why he's scolding her like that. She had a deliberate strategy to use cliches. The more the heroes define the relationship as friendship, the higher the chance that the plan will work. Charlotte is sure that the cat saw her and Kirill yesterday. Soon the secondary characters will fall in love with her. Charlotte told Jaden that he should be grateful. Her brother asked her in surprise what she meant. She said that in no plot of the novel does the Marquise's son have red hair. Evelyn must have read everything Charlotte wrote by now. Jaden doesn't want to listen to statements about his unpopularity. He asks if Charlotte will participate in the hunting tournament. In novels, this is where the most important events always take place. Or the hero and heroine become closer when they find themselves in nature. Or the heroine's life is in danger because of enemies. Or the main character and the secondary character compete for the catch of game. This is an event where youth and romance boil. Without much thought, Charlotte agrees to participate. Jaden advises her to start practicing embroidery. Traditionally, ladies embroider a handkerchief and give it to a gentleman. We soon move on to the day when the hunting tournament begins. Charlotte is not confident in her scarf, so she didn't even think about giving it to anyone. Even though she doesn't hunt, she still decided to dress appropriately. It's already summer, and wearing a huge dress in this heat is not an option. She needs the suit to protect herself from killers. But in reality, she doesn't even know how to shoot a bow. Jaden noticed that Charlotte was acting very strange. His Highness the Crown Prince arrives at the site. He will be the leader at the hunting competitions. Even in the novel, the Emperor never attended a hunting tournament. Maybe there won't be any killers this time, since Renard is here. To lift the curse, Charlotte must win the heart of a minor character. And this time, her target will be Renard. Even though her handkerchief is terrible, she is going to give it to Reynard. Unexpectedly, she ran into Lady Evelyn. She asked if the girl was really going to give the scarf to Reynard. Charlotte made an excuse that she had no interest in him. Evelyn asks who she is going to give it to then. Charlotte had to point to a random person to get out of it. And that person turned out to be none other than Eugene. Evelyn said it was a rather peculiar choice. Eugene is also participating, but Charlotte has already forgotten about him. But for some reason, the rest of the people reacted too strangely. Eugene is a good person, but no one notices it. Charlotte says she put her heart into this scarf. And now she has to change her course towards Eugene. Because of her, Eugene will become the subject of even more gossip. This is too selfish. She needs to come up with an excuse. Charlotte says that wyvern meat is actually very healthy. She makes an excuse that in all the chaos, she didn't have time to thank Eugene. Compared to Eugene's kindness, this handkerchief is nothing. Reynard doesn't understand why Charlotte gave the handkerchief to Eugene. Since the birthday banquet, Reynard has been unable to understand her. But now is not the time to worry, because the tournament is more important. Little Reynard was told that he must never forget the throne. He will not allow the Empress to see a single mistake on his part. Next, we are taken to Lindsay's camp inside the family tent. Jaden asks what Charlotte was thinking when she handed the handkerchief to the knight. She must have heard rumors about Lord Monty, too. They say he is a beast that causes harm to those around him. Then Charlotte asks what about her. She is also rumored to be a real villain. They couldn't continue the conversation, and her brother asked her to stay there. But of course, Charlotte isn't going to sit here. She noticed even then that Eugene looked unwell. His hand was shaking as he took her handkerchief. More than 10 days had passed since Eugene slept with her. Charlotte is the only one who knows Eugene. She should be more careful. Suddenly, it started to rain, which the heroine did not expect at all. At that very moment, Eugene appears nearby. He asks her why she was looking for him. She heard what was being said about them, so Eugene said that she couldn't be with him. If things continue like this, people will hate her. It turns out that Eugene also knew about the rumors that had spread. But right now, Charlotte wants to comfort Eugene. She said she didn't care about their empty words. She worries most about Eugene. She asked how many days Eugene had not slept, but Eugene doesn't even know the answer to that question. If it turns out that Charlotte is somehow connected to Reynard, Eugene doesn't know what to do. Charlotte takes off his iron helmet. As she thought, lack of sleep was causing him to see all sorts of things. Suddenly, Charlotte loses consciousness, falling into Eugene's arms. Eugene carries Charlotte to the cave and lights a fire. Charlotte's fever has subsided, which is for the better. When Eugene touched her, the girl woke up. She panics and asks the knight if he is okay. She is worried that there are bags under his eyes on his beautiful face. Eugene urgently needs to sleep as the heroine decides. Charlotte invites him to use her hand as a pillow, but Eugene asks her not to stress so much because of her. Since she has a cold, she needs to sit by the fire. Clothes that are completely wet are dried. Charlotte lost consciousness from the fever, but as soon as she came to, she began to worry about Eugene. She went out into the forest during the rain to find Eugene. When Eugene is around, nothing but trouble happens. All he can think about is that he doesn't want to let Charlotte go. Eugene hugs her, feeling her softness and warmth. Eugene's assistant ran through the entire forest looking for him, but in the end, he finds his captain in the forest. After that, Charlotte doesn't remember how they returned to the camp. Jaden won't let her escape again and will watch her every move. He is not interested in first place in the hunting tournament. Moreover, as far as he understood, first place was already predetermined. The Crown Prince's aides say it's time for them to return, but Reynard said that wasn't enough. This is not enough if he wants to inherit the title of emperor. Today, Eugene's assistant will keep an eye on him to make sure he doesn't run away. It's all because Eugene is obliged to take first place, but the nobility hates them, so the knight doesn't care. His assistant is also not surprised why they are not liked, but in fact, their advantage lies elsewhere. When they realize the usefulness of their blades, even the emperor's enemies will be interested. The assistant reminds them of their goal, but Eugene already remembers everything. Their goal is to obtain the emperor's head. Sometimes it is very difficult for his assistant to understand what is on his mind. Eugene, disobeying him, runs away into the forest again. He is met by Charlotte, who apparently also ran away. There are many scenarios in novels where the main characters can't help but fall in love. But more often than not, this happens because of what we call clichés. That's why Charlotte prepared thoroughly this time. She outlined a strategy for winning the heart of the second main character. Charlotte is confident that her plan is flawless. She asked Eugene if he was really going to miss the hunt today, but she herself told him that it was better not to go there. Eugene would like to thank her for the scarf she gave him. Dame of Glory is a title a woman receives after receiving the kerchief. If a participant receives multiple scarves, the title goes to multiple ladies. Every noble lady of the empire dreams of becoming a lady of glory at least once. Jaden is the only one who looks so desperate to win, and Charlotte doesn't understand why Reynard is so obsessed with winning. Eugene touches the girl's forehead, checking that there is definitely no fever. She suddenly became silent, so Eugene thought she had fainted. This is the real cliché, and now Charlotte must act. She tells the knight that she wants to tell him something, but at that very moment, as luck would have it, he sneezes. Eugene thinks she's still sick, but the girl said she got something in her nose. Charlotte noticed that her notebook was in the water and was floating away. Eugene is about to get it, but the heroine stops him. She can't let him read her notes. Eugene assures her that he never catches colds. Charlotte recalls that 3 years ago, Eugene would receive the title of Earl. He visited many countries, but for some reason he stayed here. Eugene has a dream, but he can't share the details. His dream was mentioned several times in the novel, but was never revealed. Eugene is from Nayuta, a country that fell 20 years ago. Either way, Charlotte will be rooting for him, but she doesn't even know what the knight dreams about. For Charlotte, it doesn't matter what it is, because she is sure that it is worth it. Eugene was embarrassed, but thanked her. Suddenly, he announces that he is going hunting. Since she supports him, he needs to give it his all. Charlotte, of course, didn't understand what hunting had to do with it, but she let him go. Also, getting ready to leave, the girl wondered which way the camp was. An hour later, she still couldn't find her way and was lost. A wild bear suddenly appeared behind her. The heroine lost consciousness out of fear at the sight of him. The cat who followed her asks the bear to disappear. Charlotte later woke up feeling a headache. The boy, who had transformed from a cat, asks her if everything is okay. Charlotte muttered how handsome he was and hung up again. The guy doesn't even know what to answer to this. It was not for nothing that he decided to quietly follow her. Before arriving in this world, the heroine was an ordinary student. She never knew how to refuse people, which is why she suffered losses. The guy she was living with once again asked her to pay his rent. It's all because handsome men have always been her main weakness. And this didn't change even after getting into the novel. Charlotte can't get the purple-haired boy out of her head. She thought that this guy himself carried her to the barracks after the bear attack. The best solution would be to ask Jaden. Jaden is glad that Charlotte didn't wander around anywhere else yesterday. Since he noticed she had run away yesterday, it would be impossible to ask. The awards ceremony for the hunting tournament finally took place. Reynard felt awkward handing over the grand prize to himself. It's no surprise that Reynard took first place. In fact, he really did kill a lot of monsters. Charlotte thought Eugene came in second. While she was thinking about this, Jaden asked her to look up. They saw a huge bird soaring above them in the clouds. On it sat the knight Eugene, who began to land. He had a phoenix egg on his back, which surprised everyone. Reynard reports that the awards ceremony is already over. It seems that Eugene went to the mountains, because the surrounding area was cleared by Reynard. Reynard felt sorry that Eugene had searched for such a rarity in vain. But Eugene is going to present this egg to the emperor and empress. But the guests are indignant. Why give the egg to someone who didn't even show up at the festival? An hour earlier, Eugene's assistant had asked him to deliver the egg before it was too late. In this way, Eugene will be able to win the favor of many. He will even be able to impress the lady he has been trying to impress for a long time. Eugene then thought that it would be a good idea to surprise Charlotte. He remembers that no matter how much he hunted, it was all to no avail. Eugene doesn't know how he can show himself to Charlotte after this. Reynard noticed Eugene looking at Charlotte. That night, a banquet was held to celebrate the end of the festival. At first, Charlotte thought the purple-haired man might be a participant. Reynard approaches her and asks for a minute. Charlotte congratulates him on his victory, and he says he will be straightforward. He asks what her relationship is with the knight Eugene. He also asked why she gave the scarf to Eugene and not to him. Charlotte doesn't know how to explain that she wants to seduce him to break the curse. Reynard was sure that she wanted to become his lady of honor, and yet Charlotte wears the ring he gave her. The head of the mercenaries sided with the empress, so now Reynard asks Charlotte if she is on his side. If the ring weighs on her, let her say what she wants. Reynard promises to give her everything she wants. Charlotte thinks he's worried she won't share the bed. In the end, the girl asked him to help her find one person. The cat asks Charlotte if she ever thought she was living aimlessly. She does nothing all day and lies around in her room. But Charlotte also considers him useless, because he couldn't even find a person. The cat asked if she really wanted that purple-haired guy so much. Charlotte is obliged to meet as many handsome men as possible. The cat asked how her determination would break the curse then. He asks her to just make a plan to make it easier. In fact, she would like to try many things. After some time, Charlotte shows the cat her wish list. It was just his little dream, a classic of the genre. After that incident with the thief, all the servants were replaced. And now Charlotte is treated kindly. She would like to become a great mistress of the elements. Besides this, she also needs to earn a lot of money. The cat had already read enough of her desires, and he had had enough of this nonsense. He explains that such things cannot be achieved through one's own efforts. All Charlotte has is the title of a stupid villain. She promises to prove to the cat that they are inside the book. Charlotte asked for the status window to open just as Jaden arrived. Basically, it was her own fault for not hearing his knock. If Charlotte dies, she will not be able to become God's chosen one. But if this cat hadn't been so useless, she would have achieved everything by now. This time, Reynard sent the letter not by pigeon, but directly to the house. He claimed to have found a guy with purple hair. Charlotte assumed it was the court magician Karen. It's dangerous to wander alone through such a huge fantasy world. That's why Charlotte takes the cat with her, because two is always better. He is the only one the girl can rely on. The next day, they are met by the knight Calix. In any case, they could use a bodyguard. Soon they arrived at the appointed place. Calix asked if the person she needed definitely lived here. The place looks abandoned, as if no one lives here. Before Calix could knock on the door, it blew open and flew away with him. Charlotte, horrified, asks him if everything is okay. Suddenly, someone appeared behind her and asked her not to move. Charlotte got scared and said that she hadn't done anything. This is not at all the purple man she had in mind. He says that if he takes another step, the woman will die. And then Charlotte realized that this appeal was not addressed to her. This is addressed to Kirill, who said that it was despicable to resort to hostage-taking. The purple man asks her to disappear from his sight if he wants Charlotte to survive. But Kirill says that he is still destined to die by his hand here. Only now does Kirill notice Charlotte, not understanding what she is doing here. Apparently, Kirill's fighting spirit is already waning. Kirill asks Karen to let her go now. Charlotte doesn't understand why. If it's Karen, he's acting like this. The cat feels a power towards Karen, similar to his. It seems that Karen made a contract with the demons. Karen asks Kirill to drop his weapon, or he will kill the girl. If Kirill shoots magic at Karen, Charlotte will also be harmed. Charlotte wondered if she was really going to die like this. She suggests that the cat absorb Karen's power, since they are similar. The cat also doesn't understand why he didn't think of this himself, so he jumps on Karen's head. After this, the cat bites his head, and Karen feels his strength leaving him. Realizing this is her chance, Charlotte breaks free from his grip. At this moment, Kirill attacks Karen with his power. A second later, the purple man disappears, as if blown away by ashes. Kirill asks Charlotte if she is okay. The heroine didn't even think that Kirill was so strong. Due to loss of strength, Kirill falls to the ground. Something happened to his hand. He says it will heal. Charlotte guesses that Kirill has used up all his power. Taking the cat in her arms, Charlotte asks him to help, and the demon's curse really began to disappear. Charlotte apologizes to Kirill because it's all her fault, but Kirill is fine as long as Charlotte is unharmed. Charlotte doesn't think she's that special to sacrifice herself for, but Kirill tells her that she is kind, strong, sincere. He admits that she is an incredibly valuable and amazing person. Now Charlotte understood why Kirill was considered a heartthrob. Since Kirill couldn't see the cat, he asked what power the lady had used. She thinks he will destroy her if he finds out that there is an evil god next to her. Kirill asks her to explore her ability. He says he'll drop in on her this evening. Charlotte realized that Kirill was not going to back down. It seems that summoning a demon is really dangerous. She didn't have time to ask the cat because he went somewhere. Then I'll have to ask Kirill when he comes. Only then, Renard appeared noticeably on the balcony. He seriously asks who Charlotte was talking about just now. They agreed that Renard would come on other days. But Renard is worried if everything is okay, as he heard about what happened. Although, judging by how active Charlotte is, then yes, Charlotte is sure that the Crown Prince is up to something. She went there because Renard himself said that he had found the person she needed. Charlotte is sure he'll just turn it all into a joke. But Renard apologizes, realizing that it was his fault. Charlotte felt a little awkward about the apology. Jaden saw a suspicious shadow on the terrace, and now asks his sister to open the door. Reynard thinks it wouldn't hurt to tell Jaden about their relationship. But Kirill will also be here any minute. Because Charlotte didn't answer, Jaden had to kick down the door. And of course, he finds the Crown Prince in his sister's room. Charlotte makes an excuse that Reynard wanted to discuss something important. Reynard said they wanted to discuss sleeping in the same bed. Jaden didn't expect that his sister and Renard were already in such a relationship. He thinks they were meeting secretly to avoid public attention. He is confident that Mom and Dad, although they will be shocked, will accept them. Jaden promises to do everything to keep their relationship a secret. They all heard a rustling sound coming from the balcony. Reynard said he was going to check who was there. Surprisingly, it was not Kirill, but Eugene. Reynard asked if he was Kirill, but Eugene said he was not. Jaden, horrified, asks if his sister is dating the wallpaper. Charlotte sighed that Reynard did not recognize the knight. But Reynard recognized him and asks Eugene to tell him the reason why he is here. In response, Eugene asks why he suddenly has to explain himself. Reynard is outraged that the knight speaks to him in such a tone. Reynard asked what was behind him, and Eugene showed him the rope, explaining that Charlotte was tying him up. Jaden is just shocked. He doesn't understand what kind of preferences his sister has. Thinking they are dating, Renard asks not to be portrayed as a relationship destroyer. Charlotte was about to say that their relationship was contractual. She's not sure if she can tell them about the bed curse. Eugene heard someone else appear on the balcony. Some flower petals appeared, which immediately made it clear who it was. Kirill apologizes to Charlotte for being late, but he freezes in fear when he notices the Crown Prince and Eugene. And Reynard, in turn, understands that this is the very same Kirill. Eugene asked why there were so many people today, because he liked it when it was just the two of them. Jaden already thought that his sister had 3 suitors. They started arguing while Charlotte was thinking about what to do. She needs to fix everything now before the situation gets worse. So Charlotte screamed and asked them all to stop. If any of them moved, they would never see her bed again. They all sat on one bed, which made it a little cramped. Jaden asks if what she told them is true. Charlotte confirms that they are all under the bed's curse. Reynard didn't expect that he wasn't the only one cursed. Charlotte didn't know that things would turn out this way. At first, she thought that by sleeping in the bed once, the curse would disappear. Kirill asks why she didn't explain anything then. She was afraid that people would think that she had brought about this curse. If she had said anything about the number of victims, it would have become even more suspicious. But Jaden is sure it would be a major clue. Charlotte has no choice but to ask for forgiveness. Reynard asks Kirill if there is a way to lift the curse. He promises to look into the matter. But so far, everything seems more difficult than it seems. Meanwhile, Eugene asks Charlotte to go to bed. Talking won't break the curse anyway, so they can talk tomorrow. Kirill asks how they will sleep, but Charlotte thinks they could fit if they tried. Jaden goes to his room, looking back at the broken door. Charlotte asks Reynard to leave, as it is Kirill's turn today. But Reynard lay down next to Eugene, and they called her to them. Reynard doesn't believe he has to share his weak spot with Eugene. Eugene doesn't think about just killing him, as he gets on his nerves. Charlotte asks the two of them to stop glaring at each other. Kirill is sure that he should sleep in the middle. Charlotte decided to try one pose. But obviously, this really bothered Kirill. But Charlotte can't just pounce on Kirill. Eventually, they lay down in a different position, and it became a little more spacious. They won't have to cuddle up to each other and get into weird positions. Charlotte's heart can't take it anymore. She can't take her eyes off them. It is strange that 3 men secretly sneak into the room of the Marquis's daughter. She became afraid that her parents might understand everything incorrectly. But now she decided to just close her eyes and sleep. Because of what the girl sees in the morning, she thinks she is still asleep. Horrified, she asks what happened here. Looking around, she wonders what happened during the night. There is a thought in my head that there was an attempted murder. Charlotte doesn't understand why no one woke up while everything was collapsing around her. The cat returned in shock and asked what happened. Besides him, Jaden also comes into the room. An assassin targeting the Crown Prince entered the house at night. But what matters now is that Charlotte was indeed the target of a murder. The father assumes that this man was a noble magician. Charlotte still doesn't understand how the room managed to collapse while she was sleeping. In fact, it was all set up by Charlotte. And all this to tell her parents that she is moving out.